Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Vishal Sharma and I'm the moderator. Today I'm joined alongside Prashanthi Reddy. Prashanthi is an alumni with the University of Pennsylvania Law School. She has been in the field of immigration since 1997. She has been admitted to the bar in New York and is a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association and the New York Bar Association as well. She holds the position of Immigration Chair for the National South Asian Bar Association and Immigration Co-Chair for the Federal Federation of Indian Association. And she's currently actively involved in pro bono legal work as well. So today we will start the session with some immigration updates. So Prashanthi, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Vishal, and thank you everyone for joining. It's a pleasure to be here. We love conducting these webinars every month, and hope that this one will be just as interesting as the previous ones were. And you will get a nugget of information, at least one piece of information that you didn't know about before you leave the seminar. So that's always what we try for. Um, let's start with the, I thought we'll start with the visa bulletin. Um, so today's topic is we're going to be discussing real life scenario H1B RFEs. This will help because if you're filing your H1, you will know, what documents to submit, what kind of documents, how to, what they might require if there is an RFE. So you can preempt the RFE by submitting those certain documents while you're submitting your H1. Also, if you know someone who has an RFE, you can perhaps help them, counsel them on how to respond to the RFE. When you see what the RFE looks like, we're kind of demystifying the RFE for you. I know for those who are in the field who have done some immigration cases or have gone through this immigration process, as soon as you say RFE, it's like, oh my God, really? Is my case going to get denied now? So we're kind of demystifying it, making you more comfortable with what a H-1B RFE is, so that if you get it, you're not worried, you don't panic, and you respond to it in the way that you should respond to it. So knowledge is power. So if you have knowledge about how to respond to something and you know what to expect, then you'll be less anxious, even if it happens to you. So that was the whole idea of today's presentation. So to start, let's start with, I only have one update, then we'll dive right into the topic. The visa bulletin for June has been published, and they're going to be using the final action dates, not the dates for filing anymore. For those of you who don't know, visa bulletin is published every month. And, if you go to travel.gov, you can see the visa bulletin, or just type in visa bulletin and, on Google, it'll show up. You look at the visa bulletin they usually publish the visa bulletin a month in advance. Usually by the beginning of the previous month is the first week of the previous month is when they publish the visa bulletin for the next month. So we have information about it in advance. So we can prepare our application if we need to, if your priority date is current. So a visa bulletin is basically a bulletin showing the priority date for India, China, and all other countries. Uh, India and China are usually backlogged, and Mexico is sometimes backlogged, and all other countries are shown under one cluster of all other countries. And usually they have family-based green card numbers and employment-based green card numbers. So there's a limitation on the number of green cards, whether it be family-based or employment-based, that can be filed every year. They have a certain number of green cards every year, and the demand is much higher. So therefore, you have to have a visa bulletin to know whether you can file your green card this year or you cannot. So the visa bulletin usually will have a priority date, and the priority date is the date that you filed your I-140, or the date that you filed your labor cert if it's a regular EB2, EB3 kind of case. If it's EB1, where there's no labor cert, then it's the date that you file your I-140. So that's the priority date. If on the table it shows that your priority date has been reached or passed, then you can file your 485. So that's the purpose of the visa bulletin. And the visa bulletin changes every month. So you should check it every month. And as I said, it's heavily backlogged for India, unavailable for EB1, EB2, and EB3, all categories. EB1 is slightly better than EB2 and EB3. So we usually talk about the visa bulletin every month because we have a new visa bulletin. So this month, and also I must tell you, there are two tables in a visa bulletin, the final action date table and the dates for filing table. So usually in the beginning of the fiscal year, which starts in October of every year, they will look at the dates for filing table. This is usually better than the final action date table. They're more advanced because they're anticipating that they'll become current. So they're allowing you to file in advance. That's what it is. So as the year goes on, it switches to final action date because then, they're not anticipating that those dates will become current anymore. So they just revert back to the final action date. So right now, since we're in the middle of the year, if you look at October as the start of the year, the final action dates for June, EB1, EB2, and EB3, EB5 categories have not changed since May. EB3 category has moved forward by a period of 1 week. And USCIS has confirmed that this month the final action date table will be looked at, and that was the same for last month as well. And the State Department, that's the department that controls the visa bulletin, they anticipate a retrogression in worldwide final action dates for EB2 and EB3 category in July. So that's in July we can expect retrogression for worldwide, and we have to see whether there'll be a retrogression for India and China as well. So that's a little bit about how to look at a visa bulletin and what it means. Now, if we can go to the actual presentation, let's pull out the actual RFE documents. First one is the Speciality Occupation RFE. These are
Sure.
actually real RFEs that we have received in our office. We've removed the names and case numbers for in order to maintain privacy, but the RFE is exactly the same. So the
Okay.
first one I wanted to show you was a Specialty Occupation RFE, what it looks like, and discuss how to respond to it. And these are the most common RFEs that we receive right now.
Sure.
Okay, so basically, this is what an RFE looks like. Um, can you go any further up, Michelle? Yeah, so it's from USCIS, and there'll be the type of RFE, the name of the person, of course. Scroll down. This is a premium processing request, and it says request for further evidence. Now, this first page will show you when you should respond by. So respond by August 5th, 2024 in this particular instance. And, the first page that you see is all just instructions. So a lot of the RFE is instructions. So uh, you may not find any questions here that you need to respond to, but it's also important that you speed read at least the instructions part as well, because sometimes, the questions are, it's not very well formatted. So sometimes you might see some questions there. So I always read through the entire RFE. So the first part is all, respond by so and so date. If you don't respond, this is what's going to happen, etc., etc. Move down. Um, and then any translation required, then uh, you know, uh, then an English translation has to be sent if you send a foreign document. So all this is uh, instructions, and if they are saying that if they don't hear from you within 60 days, If you don't hear back from them within 60 days of you sending the RFE, then you can contact the service center and ask for put up a service request. Go down. So the first part, they're starting with an introduction. They're telling us when we filed, and then they're saying that what a specialty occupation is, um, and they're talking about the type of company, the number of employees, and that we filed for a market research analyst position. So that's the job title of the position, and they're saying that if you are, if in order to show that you're eligible, you have to submit either all of the items or some of the items, or explain if you're not submitting all the items why the evidence uh, doesn't relate to you, or just request a decision on the record and say that you can't submit anything, which I wouldn't advise because then they'll just deny it. Unless you're able to show compelling evidence or, you know, give an explanation, a compelling explanation as to why what they're asking is not related to you. Going down further, they're saying submit evidence and put an index for all the evidence that you submit. Um, and here they're talking about the Vibe website. Usually, if you this is a validation instrument for business enterprise Vibe system, which USCIS has, and they pull out this information from usually from Deloitte and Touche. So, if you register on Deloitte on their free registration website where they register all businesses, then they usually pull out that information from here. So it's important, I think, if you're filing a H1 to register with them and just get the free registration and enter the basic information so that USCIS can uh, verify that you actually exist as a company. Right, so that's important. And usually, when we get an RFE like this and we see that they have not registered, we ask them to register and then put a printout of it, um, along with the RFE response. Next, go down. Now, starting with what the issue is, they're talking about specialty occupation, and they're saying what we submitted to show that the job is a specialty occupation. They're saying we submitted, of course, a description of the duties, the LCA, a brief information about your organization's product and services. Um, and they're saying that USCIS does not use the job title, but they look at the actual duties to figure out whether a position is a specialty occupation or not. And they're saying that we've provided a list of duties, but those list of duties are from another website which is called ONET, which is what we usually use um, to guide us for the duties for any position. And they're saying that's not sufficient. And in addition, they would need go down. They would need a detailed statement explaining the duties, the percentage of time spent on each duty, education and experience required um, to to perform those duties, and how the education relates to the position. This is all the criteria for specialty occupation. So you see qualifying criteria, a bachelor's degree or its equivalent is normally required, is a minimum requirement for entry into that particular position. The degree requirement is common in the industry, in parallel positions among similar organizations. So it's common in the industry to require a bachelor's degree. You can't say that only you require a bachelor's degree. If it is not common in the industry to require a bachelor's degree, then you have to show that the duties are so complex, your particular duties for your job are so complex and different from other companies that you require a bachelor's degree, even though others may not. Um, the employer normally requires a degree, so you as an employer have previously filed a H1 for a market research analyst and you've required a degree in that situation also. And again, as I said, if none of those hold good, then you have to show the complexity of the duties and show how or why, a bachelor's degree is required in this particular scenario. You can go down further. So we will describe one by one all the criteria. And the first criteria is the degree is normally a minimum requirement. Go down further. So degree is a normal requirement. This you can see by they're saying go to Occupational Outlook Handbook, um, which is basically a publication of the Labor Department. And if in that book it says that it's an online book, so you can just go to OH and it should come up on Google. In that particular book, you go look up market research analyst, and if it says how to become one, if it says that a bachelor's degree in marketing is required, like a bachelor's degree in a specific field should be required, not just a BA in arts. So if a bachelor's degree in a specific field or several specific related fields are required, then it's then we can show that it's a specialty occupation. So that's one way of showing it. So we usually quote the passage from OOH, which shows that. If we don't have that in favor, sometimes we may not. Maybe the OOH will say that a bachelor's degree in several fields, unrelated fields, is required. Then we use the other criteria to show that it's a specialty occupation. Um, so yeah, so that's one way of doing it. Even if sometimes the OOH may not even have that job title because they don't necessarily have all the job titles, in which case then we won't be able to use that particular OH to show that specialty occupation, that the job is a specialty occupation. The next one is degree is common to the industry. This is usually shown by advertisements. So if you go to Dice or you go to Monster or you go to any other job sites and you print out showing that for a market research analyst, other companies are requiring a bachelor's in economics or a bachelor's in marketing, and maybe a BBA or an MBA in marketing. That is definitely proof. We try to show that they qualify based on all the elements rather than just showing one element. It's always important that you show as many elements as possible, right? So we try to show all if we can. So they are giving some guidelines as to the date, how the job postings should be printed out, the date and source of the job posting should be like if you're using Dice, then make sure the date and the source that the Dice posting, Dice is visible on the printout, and the posting should have a detailed description of the duties, the education required. It should say that a bachelor's degree is required in a specific field, the name of the company that's offering the job, etc. So all that information should be there in the job posting. And also, you have to show that the job postings you're submitting are the company is similar in size and nature to your company. So if it's say I don't know, American Express, and you are a small company with one employee, then there's no similarity between the size of American Express and your company. So you have to show that the company is, at least maybe 5 employees or 10 employees, which will be a small business, which might be similar to your company. Usually, job postings won't have, some job postings have the size of the company, but most won't. And we usually go to LinkedIn to see if we can find more information, or the website of the company to see if we can find more information about the company with reference to their size, and then we submit that, and also the nature of the business. If it's the same industry, that's even better. If it's a different kind of industry, then it doesn't hold as much weight, right? So because we're trying to show a similar kind of business. Also, another way of showing that um, it's common in the industry is maybe you can get letters from other companies that are like yours, like the companies that if they can give a letter saying that they have in the past hired a person with a bachelor's degree in marketing for a market research analyst, then that would definitely be uh, something to a way of showing that it's common in the industry. Of course, the letter has to be signed, and the signator has to say who he is and how he has this information, like I'm the president of the company, and therefore I know that we have hired XYZ. If you have hired someone in your own company, then just submit the W-2 of that person, submit the degree copies to show that you have hired a market research analyst in the same position. You can also get an industry expert, like a professor, uh, in a marketing professor, a person who's teaching uh, maybe in business school and is teaching marketing, to show that the position of a market research analyst, it's common in the industry to have a bachelor's degree for such a person. So then you would submit an expert opinion evaluation. You would submit the resume of that evaluator, of that professor, to show their credentials. So that's another way of submitting, showing that it's common in the industry. Go down. The other one is the position is complex and unique. So if you're not able to show, excuse me, if you're not able to show the other criterias, and if it's not common in the industry, but if your particular job is complex enough to require a bachelor's degree, or even if it's common in the industry, remember you want to hit as many points as you can. You should still show that the position is complex and unique and therefore requires a bachelor's degree. And this can be done by giving a job description, showing what the complexities are, having a table to show each job and show how your degree in bachelor's is related to that job and why it's required for that particular job, why a particular subject that you did in your degree is related to that particular job. And here also you can use an expert opinion evaluation. The job description will be evaluated by a professor, and he will describe the complexity of it and why a bachelor's degree is required in this particular scenario. Go further down. Um, so the next one would be employer normally requires a degree, and I've kind of covered this. If you have previously hired a market research analyst, then you can submit their W-2 and you can submit their degree copies. You can also submit an org chart showing, your hierarchy and staffing levels, and showing the educational experience requirements for the positions that you already have. And you can submit copies of present and past job postings that you have posted, like advertisements that you have placed maybe on your website, or maybe on Dice, etc., on different websites, showing that you have advertised for a market research position and you require a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Go further down. So in order to show that you have hired a person before, you can list the number of employees that you've hired most recently. You can submit their pay records, as I said. You can submit their degrees and transcripts, and the org chart to show, where they're placed in the company. So these are a few things that you can show if you've already hired someone or if you've advertised to hire someone. The next point is, as I was saying, nature of the duties are so specific and complex that a bachelor's degree is required. We've kind of talked about it earlier a little bit. So in this RFE, they're repeating it again, and which they often do. So as long as we've touched it one time, it's fine. You don't have to, repeat it just simply because it's repeated in the RFE. But they're just giving some more information about it as to what documentary evidence can be submitted in this case. So like what we said, you have to submit an explanation of the duties, not just list the duties, but submit what the duties mean and give examples of what it means to do that, perform that particular duty in your company, right? So give real life examples of those duties, how you perform them in your company. The more specific you are, the better your RFE response is. Go down further. And then last, you also you'll have to look at the beneficiaries' qualifications. Um, Now, one of the element of a specialty occupation is that the beneficiary should have a bachelor's degree in that specific field, specific related field. So in this case, in the case of a market research analyst, the beneficiary should have a bachelor's in marketing or economics. So that those are related fields to a market research analyst. And to show that you might, if you have a US degree, then you just submit that. Go further down. If you have a foreign degree, then you'll have to get an evaluation done of your foreign degree. And you usually, again, approach the evaluators to get an evaluation done to show that your degree is related to, is equivalent to a US bachelor's in marketing degree. Sometimes you might have a degree which is unrelated, but you might have work experience which is related. So 3 years of work experience is equivalent to 1 year of college. So you would then submit a work experience evaluation to show that you have, the relevant qualifications for the job, and you'll get the evaluation will then say that you have a bachelor's in uh, equivalent to a bachelor's in marketing with your education and work experience combined. Go further down. Um, yeah. So this is all again repeating documents to show beneficiary completed the bachelor's degree, uh, that the bachelor's degree is required for the position. You can go further down. You see, there's a lot of repetition in these kind of then all this is talking about instructions on how to get an evaluation. If you don't want to get an evaluation from an expert evaluation from an evaluation services, then you can request USCIS also to do an evaluation, or you can do the evaluation yourself. So go further down. This is all instructions on that. You can continue going down. This is they're saying USCIS can also do the evaluation for you if you send them the documentation. And I think that's it. That's it for the specialty occupation RFEs.
Yes.
Going over to the next one. This is an RFE for maintenance of status. Again, same instructions on how to give evidence. What is the date to give evidence by? July 10th is the date that you have to respond by. And usually at the end of the RFE, they will give you the address also, and we will point that out later as to where you should submit your response. Going down to the next page. This is a specialty occupation introduction. They're just basically, it's a lot of instructions. They're not really asking anything here. It's the same as the last one. They're saying that the company has 9 employees. Your job is you've filed a job as an automation test engineer. And they're not asking about the job. Let's see what they're asking about further down. They're asking about maintenance of F1 student status. So this was a change of status that we filed from an F1 to a H1, a cap case. And they want to make sure that you've maintained your full course of study. So they say students must be engaged in a full course of study in order to maintain their non-immigrant status. For undergrads, a full course of study is 12 credit hours. For postgraduates, a master's and a PhD, a full course of study is determined by the DSO. Go down further. And they say that USCIS records show that the beneficiary was enrolled on August 2021, um, and to demonstrate that the beneficiary is maintaining a full course of study. They're saying we have submitted CVIS records and we've submitted the I-20, but they're saying that this is not sufficient, that to show that the beneficiary is physically attending classes. They want to make sure that they are not violating the number of online courses rule that the university has, um, even if it's a hybrid type of course of study. they're still required to physically be in school for a certain number of credits. They want to make sure that they are physically in school. The evidence, they're saying that the evidence shows that the beneficiary currently resides and is working in blah, 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 but the school is located in another place. So beneficiary is located in X and school is located in Y. So that's why they're sending this RFE, because they want to make sure that he's physically attending school, because he is not residing where the school is. So how is he physically attending those classes that he needs to attend? So they're saying that uh, there's certain documentation that you can submit to show that you're physically attending school and that you're maintaining your full-time student status. Um, of course, you can submit your transcripts of what courses you've completed so far. We can submit the tuition payment fee, proof that you've paid the tuition fee so far and you're up to date with your tuition fee. If you've bought any books, then or any course materials, any school supplies, then receipts, credit card receipts to show that you bought them, your student ID from your school. Other documentary evidence to show that you were physically present and attending school, such as, so you can show that if you're in a different state, then you can show how you travel to the other state. So say your air transportation ticket or your bus ticket or your train ticket, um, reservations or payment details, your physical attendance records, if they have that in the school. If you have, um, paid for anything, for example, you bought lunch in school or you bought some supplies in school, then you can submit all that information. If you took a room or a hotel room to go to classes, if you have some kind of accommodation in that state, or you take accommodation whenever you travel to that state, then proof of that, a hotel receipt every time you go and go for 2 days to the school and attend the school, if that's a requirement. Also, you have to show that how many online classes you attended and how many in person, and you have to show that um, you have permission from the university to attend those online classes and the other classes you have actually attended in person. So these are some of the documents to show that you have maintained status, a full course of study. The other part of the RFE is talking about CPT. Now, this person has taken curricular practical training, and this is often an RFE that you get if you have taken CPT in school. And what they always ask is the courses that require you to take CPT, um, documentary evidence establishing both the beneficiary's current major and that CPT is an essential and integral uh, part of the program. This is always these words, essential and integral, is something that they always use when they're talking about CPT. So you need to get proof from your school that you had to take curricular practical training because this was part of the curriculum. Perhaps the school has a kind of an executive program where you get credits for your work as well, and you have to show that the work is related to the courses that you're taking. So you have to submit a letter explaining the duties, I guess a letter from your employer explaining the duties, the pay, how much you get paid, and when you started working, and what the job title is. And then you'll have to submit a cooperative agreement. So when you get CPT, when you're enrolled in CPT, they always ask um, the university, there is an agreement between the university and your employer has to sign that agreement. So they ask for proof that that agreement exists. So we need to usually provide a copy of it. A statement of, explaining how beneficiary obtained CPT. So how did you get the job? Did you apply it through DICE? Was it through the school that got you the job, or was it through some referral? So you have to explain how you got the job. And you have to provide a table to show that the courses that you're taking in CPT that require you to work and your job are related. So job description, courses, job description courses. So you have to show a relationship between the two. So that is information about, and then if you go down further, it just gives instruction on, to have a cover sheet. And then I think some of it is missing, but it'll give you information on where you should send the RFE, which address to send the RFE to. Don't presume that the RFE is always sent to the address that it comes from. Sometimes you have to send it to a separate address, and usually on the following page, that information will be mentioned. Yep, that's done. We can go to the last one that we have, the last example. So this is a common RFE that we're getting now for business documents. Ever since there was this decision in 2020, ITSO versus Cessna, where the basically the decision says that you can't ask for detailed itineraries. In a consulting company scenario, you can't ask for detailed itineraries of where the employee will work. So USCIS is not asking for POs and work orders in the consulting company scenario to show that there is an end client, but instead they are sending RFEs such as this, asking for whether the business exists, whether you have a physical location, where will the person work. So if we can go down to the highlighted portion, this is just information, general information. This is about beneficiaries' qualifications, but we won't discuss that now since we've already discussed it. They were asking for an evaluation as well. Yeah, this is the employer information part that they're asking for, and this is what they're asking for in lieu of the contract and work order RFE that we usually used to get in the past. They're asking for business licenses, everything, information about the company. So it's important to keep all this ready so that in case they ask for it, and maybe some of this can be provided also with your H1, so that we can preempt such an RFE. There's always a plus and minus in providing information, so you have to weigh whether it's an advantage or disadvantage to provide the information before you provide it. As long as the information has no discrepancies in it, I think it's okay to provide it. Giving too much information too early also sometimes could be an issue. Therefore, on every case, I would weigh the pros and cons before giving out too much information. So business licenses, all your W-2s, all your employees, how many employees you have. They want to make sure that you're paying the prevailing wage maybe for all your employees. So they're asking for copies of the W-2s. They're asking for your tax returns. They're asking for your org chart, and they want to know where that beneficiary will fit in this org chart. Who will supervise him. We want to make sure that there is an employer-employee relationship, though they're not asking for that directly because they can't anymore, but they still want to make sure that there is that he fits into your company somewhere as an employee, and that there's someone supervising him in your company. Um, and they want to know generally what your company employment structure looks like, right? And then they want to know that you have a physical premises. And so therefore they want a copy of the lease. They want to know what kind of office it is. Is it an office space? Is it a warehouse, manufacturing space? It could be anything, right? Because you could be an industry as well. So they just want more clarity on what kind of office you have. What is it? Just an administrative office, or so they want the floor plan. They want the lease, which shows the number of square footage that you have. They're asking for photographs of the premises, so you would want to take photographs of all the rooms, the common area. You want to take photographs of your signage. If you have signage in the lobby area, you want to take a picture of that. You want to take a picture of the building also, the outside building, because that's what they want to see. Also, as I said, they're asking whether the workplace is a sales office, a distribution office, an apartment, a warehouse, a residence. Usually, if we recommend that you take a business lease in a business premises before you file your H1. If it's a residence, then they might say that you don't have, you're violating the zoning requirements if it is not zoned for business. And, they might say then that, you're not uh, following other rules, other laws, and they want to make sure that you do. So if it is residence, then you have to show that the person doesn't actually work out of that office, and you don't have any footfall at all, that nobody comes to that office. Then it's possible then to show that, um, you know, it's possible then to work out of a residence, but in some limited circumstances. It's always better to take, uh, a business space, a commercial space. Go down further. So they also want to know that you have the telephone bills, utility bills. Just a lease is not enough. They want us to show further evidence of the business premises that you have. So they want the utility bills, the address proof, um, proof on the payroll documents and bank statements, uh, to your telephone bills, your licenses, all showing the same address. So that's all proof of address, and they want you to show that as well. So just keep all these documents ready. This is quite a common RFE that we receive, in the case especially of consulting companies. And also I've noticed, especially when we don't submit POs and work orders to show where the job location is, they send these RFEs. I think with that, we're done with the live examples.
Yes, I'll open the floor for Q&A. So the first one is, my name is Sai, pursued master's and got approved in H-1B in 2023 under consular process. Last week, my employer sent H-1B documents to convert H-1B into regular in premium, costing me 8K. If my client okay planning to go to Canada for first time, H-1B stamping due to short-term leave approval from client, already had Canada visitor visa. So is it better to go to India or Canada? Any chances of getting RFE if I go to Canada?
Um, you can go to any consulate actually, anywhere in the world. The only issue with going to any place other than India is if you have a foreign degree, then sometimes they may not be able to evaluate that degree, and they may send you back to your home country, or they may deny it and ask you to apply in your home country. Also, you have to remember, if you go to Canada, the visa is not granted the same day, so you have to make your arrangements to stay in Canada for the period required. I believe it takes a few weeks to actually get the passport, even if you get a visa there. Um, Otherwise, I don't see any advantages or disadvantages in going to Canada for a visa. You can go. I
Okay.
mean, it seems like you're short on time, so you want to make a quick trip. If you don't, of course, if you don't get your visa, then you may not be able to come back to the US, even though you don't need a visa to travel between Canada and the US. But if you go for uh, visa purposes for an interview, then they may not allow you back on your I-94.
Right. I'll go to the next one. H-1B termination due to layoff. Need to transfer within 60 days grace period. H-1B transfer receipt received within 60 days period. Question: can new employer wait to generate pay slips until until H-1B transfer approval, or two, employer gets actual client project?
So you can wait until the approval, that's number one, but you can't wait until you get an actual project, because the whole premises for the H1 is as of the date of filing the H1, he has a job for you. So you should get on their payroll if you don't want to violate your H-1B status. As soon as the H-1B gets approved, you could wait for 30 days. Uh, there's some instances where they don't put them on the payroll for 30 days because there's no SSN number. But in this situation, that's not the case. So even if you're not on the payroll immediately, you'd have to get paid back wages. So either way, you have to get paid, whether it's now or a little later. Um, if you don't get paid for that period, you're violating your H-1B status. And it's a problem for the employer as well because they're violating the Labor Department regulations.
All right. Next up is a 15-year education, BSc Computers, with 16 years experience in the relevant skill good for H-1B?
Yes, it is, absolutely. If you have that 16 years, a BSc is a 3 years degree. In the US, you have to have a 4 years degree to get a bachelor's. So you need only 3 years of work experience, which is related as long as it's a computer science related experience. Then you can get an experience evaluation done to be equivalent to a bachelor's degree in information systems or some such. That's what they'll most probably give you, and that's good for your H1.
Okay. Before I go to the next one, I see a couple of people have raised their hand. If you have a question, I would request you to type in your question in the chat window. We'll pick it up from there. Thank you. Next up is now RFEs started. It's better to file the H-1B petition / extension properly.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's kind of like a comment, but yes, definitely RFEs are coming in. So it's better to file it. It depends again on your situation, but we always file a complete H-1B package. We try not to file skeleton petitions.
Next up, my 6th extension H-1B I-129 is denied after RFE was answered, asking evidence for electronics degree meets a job role. Reference Pradeep Ashli, I had to switch to my EAD AOS for now. Still waiting for denial notice. What are my options to fight denial?
So I'm glad that you were able to switch to EAD and you didn't fall out of status. It's a little unusual for the H-1B to be denied if it's your 6th extension, which means that you have previously gotten several approvals before. So it could be that proper documentation was not submitted this time, or the response was not given properly. So you should think about if you want to go back to a H1, either refiling or maybe filing an appeal once you get the denial notice and you see, what was the reason for the denial. I mean, USCIS makes a mistake all the time. So it could be just, and also I know if you have not used an attorney, it's possible that the RFE was not responded to properly. And those are the two conclusions I'm coming to because you've previously gotten extensions. Unless it's something to do with the employer this time and something to do with the job, which was different from your previous time. So you could never say what it is. Wait for the denial notice, then you will know for sure, and then you can, reach out to an attorney and take proper advice as to whether you should appeal or leave it alone or file a new H1.
That's good. Next up is I was enter on H4 current status, also H4. I have approved H-1B petition, looking transfer to another employer. My question is, 1, I have chance to get transfer with stamping like changes status. 2, when can I apply, I assume, SSN after transfer completion or based on petition number? And number 3 is based on petition number will work. Maybe we'll have to paraphrase some of it.
Try to be not so cryptic with your text. Kind of write it out a little bit more so we can understand. But let's try to respond one by one. Looks like this person is on Ranjit is on H4 and wants to change status to a H1. This is basically a change of status. It's not called a transfer, it's called a change of status. Um, I have chance to get transfer with stamping. So you will not get a stamping here. That's the visa. The visa. There is no visa revalidation, and that's only in the case of an extension with revalidation. But they haven't started that visa revalidation yet, even for extensions. So you will not, in any circumstances, get a visa in the US when you file a change of status from a H4 to H1. Once it gets approved, you can continue working on the H1, but next time when you want to travel, you'll have to go to the consulate, either in Canada or somewhere outside the country or India and get stamped. Your SSN you can apply once your H1 gets approved, not while it's pending. And you cannot work while the change of status is pending because it's not a transfer, it's a change of status. You have to wait until your change of status gets approved.
All right, thank you. Can H4 work without EAD?
No, they can't.
That's a simple one. Next up, can we take virtual office space?
No, absolutely not. They require you to have a physical address because there are a lot of posting requirements. You need to post the LCA, you need to post other DOL um, notifications. In case there is an audit, there are often FDNS audits. USCIS will send someone to actually inspect your office and inspect all your postings. You're required to maintain documents, your public access file in your office, which can't be done. And this is a physical document is required, so that can't be done virtually. So no, you can't take a virtual office. You have to take a physical office.
All right.
I mean,
We
it can be
have
a small shared space, but it has to be a physical office.
noted. We have a few more minutes, so if you have any last minute questions, feel free to put that in the chat window as well. If you're interested in the early bird complimentary session, please drop in your email address, and if you're selected, one of our team members will reach out to you. Next up is if any of our employee on H-1B return back to India, do we need to inform USCIS or ignore so that he can travel in future?
Yeah, that's a good question because I understand why you're saying that you might want to recall him in the future and use the same H-1B approval, but you're required within 10 days to notify USCIS that the person has left and to withdraw the petition. How strict are they with reference to this requirement? I have not seen them penalize anyone based on this. So, take your chances on it. Make your decision as to what you want to do.
Mhm. What is the process to change from F2 to H-1B if we got picked up in lottery?
You basically have to file a change of status application. It's the same process as any other H1 application. You have to file the I-129 application, get an LCA approved. Um, you have to show that you're in status on an F2, which means that you're a dependent. So you have to submit the marriage certificate and show that your spouse is in valid F1 status as well, as it is in any dependent situation when they're filing a change of status. They have to prove that their spouse is also in status, and they have to show the relationship uh, between the spouse and them.
Does I-797B mean H-1B is not in effect until stamping?
Yeah, if the I-94 is not given at the bottom, if there's no I-94 at the bottom, and don't look at your courtesy copy, look at the um, original notice. If you have an attorney, that goes to them. Otherwise, both notices will come to you. And just see if there's an I-94 at the bottom. If there's no I-94 given, then you cannot work in the US until you leave and then come back and get an I-94. If you already have a H-1 visa in your passport, you don't have to go for stamping. You can just leave and come back and get the I-94 that you need when you enter at the port of entry. If you don't have stamping, then yes, you'll have to go for stamping.
Okay. We only have 1 minute left. I'll quickly try to
I think
get all the questions.
Praveen is asking a question.
Praveen, I think, has given us more information. Do you want to take
This is different.
now?
This is Praveen. I don't think we answered his question.
I think it's the same. Okay, but we'll just go through it. This is Praveen Ashili I-129 denial case. The employer is a Fortune 100 company. Being in EAD AOS, can my employer do a H-1B cap exempt to save my position while being in EAD AOS?
He did ask the same question
Yes.
because he
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about EAD.
Yeah.
Can my employer do a H-1B cap exempt? Yes, you are cap exempt because you were previously on a H-1.
Okay.
And while on EAD, you cannot do that. He can do that for consular processing. And then once the consular processing gets approved, then you have to leave the country and come in because on an EAD, you can't file a change of status to a different status.
My employer is currently in process to file a H1 non-cap through premium processing. My F1 opt-out is expiring on July 15th. My question is, I also have a plan B that transfers to H4. I want to know how soon does the H4 needs to be filled if my H1 doesn't get approved.
So your H4 needs to be filed if my H1 doesn't get approved. So you have to, if you're presently on an F1 OPT, and if it's expiring July 15th, then you really have to file your H4 change of status before your OPT expires. If you have a grace period, then you can file it during the grace period. You can't wait for your H1 to get denied because your H1 is protected by cap gap, meaning you get a artificial extension, right, based on cap gap if you file a H1. But that doesn't protect you or allow you to file a change of status after the cap gap period is over. So something to keep in mind, when you're filing this change of status. Maybe you want to file both, and maybe you want to withdraw one of them if the other one gets approved.
Can we take space from Regus or MySpace co-working space?
Yes, absolutely, we can, Dilip.
Can I apply H4 EAD without having I-40 approval of primary applicant of H-1B application?
You can't apply for H4 EAD unless your spouse has an I-140 approved.
Can we travel to India while H4 EAD is pending?
That's tricky. If your H4 is already approved and it's just the EAD, you should be able to travel, but sometimes USCIS denies the EAD if you leave. They shouldn't be doing that, but sometimes they do. I would be a little cautious with this.
Please give a brief about how to get EAD for H4 spouse after first entry in USA, and when can we apply for GCEB 1/2 or so for MD physician after first entry?
This is a whole lot of information that you're asking in a few lines. Get EAD for EAD for a H4 spouse. The spouse has to have an I-140 approved. That's the only way you can get a H4 EAD. You have to apply using an I-765 form. You can apply for a green card for a physician the same way that anybody else would apply for a green card, either in you can do the EB2 or EB3 category where you file a labor cert and then get an I-140 approved. For that, you need an employer. Your spouse needs an employer. The employer has to do this. Or you can, if they're into research, then you can do EB1 as well. So it depends on what their particular circumstances.
Okay. Can we change the employer or get a job with other employer, ignoring the current employer, which is stamped H-1B visa first timer?
Can we change the employer or get a job with other employer ignoring the current, which is, I don't know what the situation is here, Parth, what you're saying. If you're saying that you have the stamp from employer A, but you want to use employer B's H-1B to enter into the US, yes, you can do that.
Okay. My pay stub's job title is different from original job title due to error unnoticed from employer. Will it cause an issue while filing for H-1B?
It could, and I would be careful with that because when you file your H-1B extension or transfer, they will see that as an indication that you have not maintained status because your H1 is approved for a particular job title. So I would get those changed at least the last payrolls, last 6 months changed before you decide to file an extension.
Okay. There is one more from Praveen. Do you want to take it offline or should I just read it out?
Sure, we'll take that as the last question.
Okay. I have a past EB3 denied for eligibility USCIS error after 1290B appeal non-prejudice. After that, I refiled under EB2 and have EAD. Can I fight the EB3 denial?
It depends on why it was denied, and there is an appeal period within which you have to file it. So if you have passed that appeal period, then it's likely that they will not allow you to appeal. So yeah, the chances of appealing that EB3 denial are less.
Okay. All right. I guess on that note, we can call this a wrap for today. Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for your time. Oh, it looks like, do we have something else here? Just I'm quickly going through the chat. Is it mandatory to have office space to file H-1B? Maybe the last
As
one.
I said, it is definitely either you have to have a commercial space or at least you have to have a home office. If you have to have a home office, then the employer cannot be working out of your office. Your employee cannot be working out of your office. And no employees can be working out of there. So I suggest to take, if you're taking an office, take a commercial space, even if it's a small place.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for today's session. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Prashanthi. We've shared the email address, book a consultation, and we are giving away an early bird complimentary session as well. So if you're interested, drop us an email and someone from our team will reach out to you. Prashanthi, once again, thank you so very much for your time. And we
Very
look
quickly,
forward to the next
Vishal, in
session.
the Q&A, some people have put questions. They've, I think,
Oh,
by
is that?
mistake asked it in the Q&A.
Okay.
Maybe we can
So
quickly
lots
take
of questions
those.
today.
Yeah,
Okay.
quickly take those and then we'll end the session.
Yeah. Today's session looks more like a rapid fire.
I know, I was just trying to get as many questions out as answers
right.
out as possible.
So let's go. My H-1B extension is approved. Can my H-4 go for extension stamping during their travel to India with H-1B going for the extension stamping?
Yeah, you can both go together if you have a H1 and H4 situation where one is an extension. I mean, yeah, I don't see why the husband and wife can't go together, but you have to put that in your, when you're requesting for the interview.
All right. The next one we've already answered in the chat. The last one is any examples of RFE for L1A extension?
So I think we should make that our next session.
Yes, thank you for that note. I think I've covered all.
Yes, I think you're done.
And for those who have raised your hand and we haven't had the chance to get back to you, I suggest you reach out to us. You can reach out to Prashanthi on LinkedIn, drop her an email, or go to our website and book a consultation. Once again, Prashanthi, thank you so much for your time. It definitely feels like we should do the next one soon.
Yes, for sure. We'll do another one next month.
Thank you, Prashanthi. So yeah, on that note, we'll wrap up today's session. And once again, thank you so very much for attending this webinar.
Don't forget to subscribe to our videos if you like what you see. Also give us a thumbs up and share the video with your family and friends. Thank you.